Would it not be of your own benefit to act accordingly as a president when you are in power? Or would you rather mess up and eventually get investigated and exposed by your predecessor? In Africa, heads of state mess up big time and try as much as possible to cover their tracks to avoid them being exposed for their wrongdoings and their illicit behaviors during their reign. A prime example is what is happening in Senegal at the moment. The newly elected President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and Ousmane Sonko decided to dig into the past happenings of former President Macky Sall, and what they have found is shocking. It shows how three Western masters were in control of Senegal by dictating to Macky Sall what he should and should not do. But who are these three Western masters controlling Macky Sall during his time in office? Make sure you stay till the end as we simply blow your mind with the findings of the PASTEF's investigations. Let's dive right in. Senegal has seen a very turbulent political and democratic landscape in the past couple of years, all because of one man trying to hang on to power despite his time running out. This didn't sit well with the people of Senegal, who took to the streets to oppose the agenda of Macky Sall, who was trying to take away the future of the Senegalese people by wanting to stay in power despite not doing well for its people. Under his reign, the country was gripped by massive unemployment, high cost of living, poverty, and massive depletion of fish in Senegalese waters, resulting in a surge in irregular migration to Europe by Senegalese fishermen with wooden boats. Clearly, he wasn't doing well at all, despite rampant corruption allegations, mismanagement of public funds, fraudulent oil and gas contracts, and questionable mining deals. However, the biggest of them all is Macky Sall's siding with the West, which led to a serious instigation of the Senegalese terrorist law, which had just been uncovered by the PASTEF regime. According to Ousmane Sonko, Macky Sall had put through a ridiculous law on terrorism. Ousmane Sonko was left bewildered as he wondered why such a law was put through in Senegal, as Senegal never struggled with terrorism in the first place, with no records of someone doing terrorist activities or tying a bomb himself and then detonating the bomb in the middle of lots of people, Sonko said. The only thing that Senegal refused to get rid of was the MFDC rebels in the Casamance region of Senegal. They have been there for over a decade, and they have not been targeting the civilians on the majority of the occasions, as their agenda was to seek independence for the region of Casamance from the Senegalese government. In fact, people usually go there to have a conversation with the leader. However, this is not to say that we support what they are doing, and they should be there or they don't cause harm at all. The only reason they are there to date is the unseriousness of the Senegalese military offensive, which had been sporadic and eventually coming to an abrupt halt in many cases. Was Macky Sall referring to this as terrorists? Or was there an ulterior motive for the terrorist law? Well, according to the PASTEF investigations and Ousmane Sonko, the terrorism law in Senegal was brought forward to only protect the interest of Macky Sall as well as his three Western masters, whom we will shortly unveil over the Senegalese people. It all started with one man, a well-known figure, who proposed this to Macky Sall. Macky Sall went ahead with this law because it was going to be best for him, just like his three Western masters, Sonko said. But what was the main objective of the unprecedented terrorism law? The aim of the law was to silence anyone who was standing up against the wrongdoings of the Macky Sall regime, as they would label you a terrorist and put you behind bars. One of the three of Macky Sall's Western puppet went on to further inculcate that whoever was standing up against the illegal doings of the Macky Sall regime to be behind bars for up to 3 months. However, this was rejected by the Senegalese parliament as well as the British parliament, as it was seen as a violation of the human right to hold someone for 90 days without prosecuting him or her. We know you are surprised by our mentioning the British parliament. However, when we start mentioning the names of the three Western masters that were controlling Macky Sall, everything will become clear. Just hang on there and hold your horses as we set the scene straight and make sure everything becomes clear from the onset. Overall, it was because of this law Macky Sall was locking people up left, right, and center, the people who try to stand up for the interest of Senegal. Was this the main reason Ousmane Sonko and Bassirou Diomaye Faye got locked up in the first place, as they were standing up against the illicit doings of Macky Sall? Comment your thoughts down below. Serigne Mansour Sy Djamil, the former deputy speaker of the Senegalese parliament since 2012, also acknowledged that anyone standing up for the interest of the nation will be in trouble with Macky Sall. Serigne Mansour Sy Djamil stated that whoever wanted to stand for the interest of Senegal and tell the truth to liberate the Senegalese people, Macky Sall and his three Western masters would regard you as a terrorist. This includes people protesting on the streets as well. This was the reason why Macky Sall was so hot on locking people up, all in the name of combating terrorism. How dumb does this sound? Even the Western countries plagued by terrorism don't even act this way, Sonko said. But who are these three Western masters that were controlling Macky Sall? These are as follows. But before we spill the beans, this is a humble request to please support our work by liking this video and subscribing to the African Pacific YouTube channel, a Gambian-owned channel looking into the brutal affairs of the motherland that are often ignored by mainstream media. Please show your support by liking and subscribing. Thank you so much. Ousmane Sonko, the Prime Minister of Senegal, started by saying that Macky Sall was the president but he wasn't in charge. He further went on to state that Macky Sall was being told what to do and what not to do by his Western masters. What these Western masters get Macky Sall to do always goes in favor of these Western masters and Macky Sall himself instead of the interest of the Senegalese people. The first Western puppet that was controlling Macky Sall was no other than Tony Blair. Does that name sound familiar to you? I bet it does. Tony Blair was one of the people who were dictating to Macky Sall what he needed to do. From 2017 to 2024, he came to Senegal 3 times in November 2017, February 2020, and March 2021. And whenever he came to Senegal, he secluded himself with Macky Sall, discussing only God knows what. He is the pioneer of Senegal's terrorism law. We all know Tony Blair to be a very interesting figure who just likes to manipulate people and spread falsehood. We have seen his actions in Bosnia and Kosovo, as well as his ridiculous doings in Iraq. He was one of the people who stated that Saddam Hussein had a nuclear weapon in Iraq, which resulted in the complete destruction of Iraq. This is the person telling Macky Sall what to do. Is something good expected to come out of this? Was it the right thing to do to associate yourself with such people? Comment down below. Now it makes sense why I mentioned the British Parliament earlier. The second Western master who was controlling Macky Sall was Nicolas Sarkozy, the former Prime Minister of France. He was the one who stated that we the Africans are behind and we like conflict, and he mentioned this on Senegalese soil. He was the same person who set fire in Libya, resulting in the assassination of Mohammed Gaddafi. He was equally the one who equipped the jihadist terrorists together with his Western allies and the spread of the jihadist terrorists in Mali and the Sahel region. This was the handiwork of Nicolas Sarkozy, as stated by Ousmane Sonko. Again, another big sponsor of terrorism was telling Macky Sall what to do. At this point, are you surprised at the proposed terrorism law in Senegal despite not recording terrorist activities? Comment down below. The third Western master who was controlling Macky Sall was Jean-Louis Bruguière, a leading French investigating magistrate in charge of counter-terrorism affairs. He was appointed in 2004, vice president of the Paris Court of Serious Claims. He was in Senegal on the 26th of May 2021, trying to save Macky Sall. He comes to Senegal to meet with Macky Sall's magistrates, telling them what to do. He is also the anti-terrorism consultant for Mauritania and Togo, as well as other Western puppet-controlled countries. His purpose is to get the juicy paychecks he so desperately wants, as stated by Sonko. These are the 3 Western masters Senegalese's Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko stated as the Western masters controlling Macky Sall and ultimately running the affairs of Senegal. In other words, Macky Sall was listening to these 3. Tony Blair, Nicolas Sarkozy, and Jean-Louis Bruguière, who are the world's renowned double-standard hypocrites and biggest sponsors of terrorism. In conclusion, we are not saying that African leaders should not in any way work with the people of the West. However, they need to realize that these Western heads of state only have the interest of their people at heart and not Africans. So therefore, African leaders need to stop being puppets of the West and fully defend the interest of the African people. Besides, these African heads of state can only be Africans, and these Western masters won't respect them or take them seriously or involve them in their serious matters. No matter how well they protect the interests of their Western masters in the hope of staying in power, African people will always find a way to get rid of them.